Well, I'm a patrol sergeant, so that means I work patrol, but I also provide a supervisory function for my team.
Sergeant Bill Jacobson has been with the Centennial Lakes Police Department for 13 years, but it wasn't always where he saw his career going.
I actually started going to school for pre-engineering classes, and there's no cops in my family, there's no cops in my history or anything like that, but engineering seemed kind of boring. It wasn't driving a train like I thought it was. It was actually a lot of math. So, I actually came here and did a ride-along with an officer named Scott Arnson. He actually works for the Minnesota DNR now. But I did a ride-along with him, and I fell in love with it. I mean, that was kind of the the guiding light for me. After that day, I'm like, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a cop, and I wanted to be a cop here.
And he was able to do just that and join his hometown police department.
It's actually a really quiet community, which is great. I actually grew up in Circle Pines. I grew up over on Twilight Terrace and then over on Arthur Court, so it's kind of my hometown, and it's quiet, which is good. We handle a lot of the stuff that a lot of small cities deal with. Alcohol is a big problem. We deal with traffic. Traffic is a huge complaint. Speeding in neighborhoods, speeding on Lexington, Main Street in Centerville, crashes. We deal with our share of domestic situations. We find ourselves mediating those quite a bit. And of course, mental health is big right now. We get a lot of mental health calls, and in fact, the last 2 days, we've had 3 or 4 mental health calls. So that's one of the battles we're on the front lines of right now, even in our city.
Every day brings its own challenges, but every day also brings a chance to work with the community.
That's really what I love, and that's kind of what you see on our social media as well. Us interacting with our community, and we try to tell our story through some of those photos of, you see the lemonade stand in the summer on North Road, and you'll see squads out with that. You see, the photos of some of the scenes we go to. Some of those we share on Facebook because we think they have an important message.
And Sergeant Jacobson is the main face behind the pictures, sharing pictures of people, community events, and sometimes just nice weather.
It's all about perspective. All right, I like it. I really fell in love with photography kind of over time.
Many pictures are of fun or happy events, but others share something more.
I think using those photos to tell those stories, people can really understand who we are, what we're about. You'll see a lot of sentiment on our Facebook page coming from me and the rest of the social media team about the lessons we learned from being cops. Being a cop, you learn pretty quickly that life is a pretty fragile thing. I mean, we take a lot of things for granted as people. We take for granted being healthy. We take for granted we'll wake up tomorrow and we'll have another day and we'll go after it again. But not everybody gets that. And we're in a unique position in law enforcement where we get reminded of that a lot.
His favorite photo he has ever taken was after responding to a very serious accident.
It was a fire truck that had rolled over, and it came out just as a rollover crash, unknown injuries, which is a pretty common call. It's not earth-shaking call. But we got there and we realized pretty quick this was a very serious crash, and that scene, it was tough. I mean, there was a lot of hurt people, a lot of hurt firefighters. There were some firefighters that were killed in that crash, and I was reflecting at the time on that scene and how we can tell that story and the response to that story. And I stacked a bunch of our boots, which happened to be soaked in diesel fuel, because when the truck rolled, the diesel fuel tanks cracked open, and you have cops everywhere, firefighters just sloshing through like a ditch full of diesel fuel. And so I lined up these boots in front of one of our squads, and I titled the picture Boots, and I just kind of told that story about, what those boots symbolize, the fact that they're covered in diesel fuel, the fact that, we weren't worried about the consequences of what could happen. We were just worried about doing our job. It really tells a story of this community, this police department, and how we work together in times of crisis.
In between the crises, there can be a lot of normal days. Normal days that often look nothing like Hollywood police dramas.
But I think people really need to know that we're just normal people doing our job just like anybody else.
Doing the work that many people don't want to do. And while he does the work, Sergeant Jacobson hopes to be able to make a lasting difference on his community.
I always thought when I decided, hey, I'm going to be a cop, I'm going to go into law enforcement, I wanted to be able to say, at the end of my life, when I'm done, this is the end for me, I want to be able to say, hey, I made a difference for somebody. I went out and I did something that mattered. And I think that's the one thing that really drives a lot of cops is we're doing good work that matters. And, this community being my hometown, I mean, it means a lot to me too.